I stared at the closing documents on the mahogany table, the attorney's pen already waiting beside the stack. "Go ahead and sign the last page, Laura," Jacob said coolly. "Just a formality." I flipped to the final sheet, expecting to see what we had discussed for over a year. Both our names, side by side, co-owners of the home we spent a decade renovating together. But it was gone. My name was gone. The black ink printed only one name, Jacob R. Morgan. Where's my name?" I asked, my voice small and fragile like cracked glass. He didn't even look up. "It made more sense this way," he said casually. "Legally cleaner. I'll fix it later." The lawyer shifted uncomfortably. I looked at Jacob again. He blinked twice and offered a tight-lipped smile like nothing happened. My name had vanished. From the deed. From our agreement. From everything I thought was secure. And in that moment, quiet, cruel, paper-thin, I knew. This wasn't a mistake. It was a decision. Jacob and I met during our sophomore year at Oregon State. I was majoring in architecture, obsessed with Frank Lloyd Wright and floor plans. He was studying finance, always glued to spreadsheets and the Wall Street Journal. He told me once that he could tell a person's future by looking at their credit report. I should have known right then. Back then, though, we made sense. I was all heart, he was all structure. I saw possibility in abandoned buildings. He saw potential in empty lots. We clicked in a way that made me believe we could build something, not just a life, but a legacy. I came from a blue-collar family in Eugene. My mom was a receptionist, my dad a retired Navy vet-turned-mechanic. We didn't have much, but we had each other. I was the first to go to college. My parents mortgaged their tiny house to help cover my tuition. "You're gonna design skyscrapers one day, baby girl," my dad would say, beaming with pride. Jacob came from wealth, not flashy, but solid. His father owned a chain of car dealerships in Northern California, and his mother volunteered on local art boards while sipping Chardonnay. Their family holidays involved lake houses and catered dinners. Mine were potlucks and folding chairs in the backyard. Still, we made it work. Or maybe I made it work. From the beginning, I was the one adapting. When I met his parents, I brought homemade cookies. His mother didn't touch them. "Oh, how quaint," she said, setting the tin aside. When Jacob graduated, his parents gifted him a down payment for his first property, a small duplex in Portland. He suggested we live in one half and rent out the other. I had just landed my first job at a local architecture firm and was paying off my student loans. I scraped together $12,000, my entire savings, to help with renovations. "I'll add your name later," Jacob said as we painted the upstairs bathroom one night. "Let's just get it done first." That was the first time I let it slide. It became a pattern. I'd offer. I'd give. I'd build. And every time, he'd say later. That duplex turned into 3. Then 5. We formed a little real estate company, Morgan and Company. Except there was no company. Just him. My designs, my hands, my labor, but not my name. I kept telling myself it was love. That it didn't matter whose name was on paper. That one day, it would all even out. I remember one Christmas, Jacob gifted me a leather-bound planner. "For your projects," he said, proud. But inside the cover it read, "Property designed by L. Carter for Morgan Holdings, LLC." Even in gifts, I was invisible. At family events, his parents introduced me as Jacob's girlfriend. She's in architecture. Not partner. Not co-founder. Just some accessory to their golden boys empire. Meanwhile, I was keeping it all running. I coordinated contractors, dealt with plumbing disasters, comforted stressed tenants, designed interiors down to the throw pillows. I'd spend weekends crawling through moldy basements, measuring damp corners for repair, while Jacob entertained investors over cocktails. But the worst part wasn't the work. It was that no one saw me doing it. His sister, Madison, once laughed when I mentioned staying up late fixing a lease agreement. "Laura, leave the business to Jacob," she said, swirling wine in a glass that probably cost more than my first car. "You're more the creative type. Creative. Supportive. Convenient." I started losing track of the things I gave up, art shows, trips home, even friendships. I miss my best friend's baby shower because we had an open house Jacob didn't want to reschedule. You can see the baby later, he said. This is our future. I began to wonder whose future it really was. One night, after a particularly heated argument over a new investment property, a crumbling craftsman that needed major foundation work, I told Jacob I wanted to formalize my role in the business. Get things in writing. Be added to the company. His face stiffened. It's just easier with one name, he said. Banks like it cleaner. It doesn't mean you're not important. Important. That word was like a prize ribbon for a race I didn't agree to run. I nodded. I always nodded. What else could I do? I wasn't married to him. I didn't have a legal claim. Every agreement was verbal. Every sacrifice undocumented. Until one day, even my name was erased. Not with anger, not with a fight, but with cold, methodical silence. The silence that comes after a decade of being useful. Even my own parents, sweet and hopeful, never asked. They assumed Jacob was taking care of me. You two are such a strong team, my mom would say. I never had the heart to tell her the team had only one name on the jersey. Then came the final property. The one I truly loved. It was a century-old farmhouse outside the city. Peeling paint, rusted hinges, a wraparound porch that groaned when you stepped on it. But I saw magic in it. I redesigned every inch of that place, restored the windows by hand, hunted down antique doorknobs from estate sales. I lived in that house as if it were mine, because it was supposed to be mine. I poured 2 years of my life into that house. I gave up sleep, social life, my health at times. And when we applied for permits, I even took out a personal line of credit to keep construction moving. Jacob promised, "This one will have your name on it, Laura." I swear. He swore. So when we finally walked into that closing room, the wood-paneled office with leather chairs and little bowls of mints, I believed him. I thought I was finally being seen. I thought at last I was being counted. Instead, I watched my name disappear. Not just from a piece of paper, but from a decade of love, labor, and trust. I didn't sign the paper. I sat in that chair, frozen, while Jacob pretended nothing had happened. His phone buzzed, and he checked it mid-meeting, as if I wasn't unraveling beside him. The lawyer, Mr. Ellison, looked anywhere but at me. I think he knew. "I'm not signing," I finally said. My voice was quiet, steady but breaking. Jacob raised an eyebrow. "Laura, this is standard. We can add your name later. We just need to file this today." "No," I said again. "You told me you promised." He cut in. "I'm telling you now. This is what we're doing." I looked at him. Really looked at him. There was no trace of the man I fell in love with. Just a businessman, irritated by inconvenience. He stood, adjusted his sleeves, and gave a tight nod to the lawyer. "We'll reschedule." The moment the door clicked shut behind him, I stayed seated. Still. Numb. Mr. Ellison cleared his throat. "I'm not supposed to say anything, but Miss Carter, you should know. This deed was filed last week. There's no plan to amend it." I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just nodded, grabbed my bag, and left. That night, I sat on the porch of the farmhouse, my farmhouse, watching the wind stir the dry leaves across the front lawn. The porch light flickered, the result of wiring I'd rewired myself 3 months earlier. It felt like the house was warning me, "You're not safe here." I didn't go inside. I just sat there. Until it started raining. And I still didn't move. The days that followed were blurred versions of that same porch silence. I didn't tell anyone. I couldn't. What would I even say? That I had given up a decade of my life, sweat, and love only to become legally irrelevant? I tried calling Jacob once. He declined the call. I texted, "Please talk to me. We need to fix this." He replied, "It's not personal. It's just business. I hope we can both move on." Not personal? I helped raise his niece when Madison had her baby early. I cooked meals for his mother when she had surgery. I pulled a dead raccoon out of the crawl space of a rental unit so he wouldn't miss his golf tee time. I was the one who stayed up reworking budgets, who ran errands for open houses, who made every holiday happen without thanks. But it wasn't personal. I deleted the message. Later that week, I bumped into Madison at a local cafe. She was sipping oat milk latte and scrolling on her phone. "Oh, Laura." She looked up with a smile too tight to be real. "I heard things fell through." "I was erased," I said flatly. She blinked. "Well, I mean, technically, it was never your name. You guys weren't married." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "I gave everything to that house. To this business." She shrugged. "Yeah, but you know Jacob's always been good at protecting himself. It's not personal." That phrase again, like a knife being twisted slowly. A few days later, Jacob's mother called. Not to apologize, but to inform me. "We're planning some renovations. Jacob mentioned you have the contact for the roofing company," she said. I laughed, bitter and hollow. "You erased me and now you want my vendors?" She sighed. "Let's not make this difficult. Jacob said you might get emotional." That's when it hit me. This wasn't some mistake. This was a collective choice. A decision everyone else had agreed upon behind closed doors. I was being phased out. Quietly. Cleanly. Surgically. Like I never mattered. The rejection wasn't just legal. It was personal. Deeply. He didn't just remove my name. He erased my place in the story. People say betrayal is loud, cheating, screaming matches, slamming doors. But mine came quietly. With legal filings. With ignored texts. With lawyers who shrugged. And it wasn't a stranger who did it. It was someone who once told me, "You're my home." That weekend, I went to visit my parents. I hadn't told them yet. My mom was making chili, and my dad was in his recliner, watching old westerns. "So, how's the farmhouse coming?" my dad asked. "You finally got the deed done?" I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Instead, I smiled. "Yeah, almost there." I couldn't say it. Not yet. Because if I said it out loud, it would be real. I tried one last time. I emailed Jacob. "I'm not asking for a fight. I just want what's fair. We built this together. Please make it right." His reply came an hour later. Subject: the deed. Message: Laura, I appreciate everything you've done. But let's be honest. None of this was ever formal. You were never legally a partner. I can't risk the business on emotions. I hope you understand. Jacob. I stared at the email until the words blurred. He had rewritten history, just like he had rewritten the paperwork. And no one was going to stop him. But something inside me shifted. Not rage. Not revenge. Just clarity. I finally saw who I was to them. And more importantly, who I wasn't. I didn't fight back. Not in the way they expected. There were no angry phone calls. No dramatic Facebook posts. No lawsuits filed, not yet at least. Instead, I vanished. Quietly. Effortlessly. Like fog burning off in the morning sun. The day after Jacob's final email, I stood in the middle of the farmhouse kitchen and looked around. The butcher block counters I'd sanded by hand. The vintage light fixtures I hunted down from estate auctions. The pantry door Jacob swore was just a door, which I had transformed into a mural of wildflowers. It wasn't mine anymore. And yet, it had more of me in it than anywhere I'd ever lived. I packed 3 boxes. My journals. My grandmother's quilt. A worn photograph of my parents on their wedding day. I didn't take tools or decor or anything that screamed value. Just the pieces of myself that hadn't been stolen yet. And then I left. I didn't tell Jacob. I didn't tell Madison. I didn't answer when his mother texted me about that roofer's number. Instead, I drove 2 hours south, back to Eugene. Back to where I started. My childhood bedroom was still painted sky blue, with faded glow-in-the-dark stars stuck to the ceiling. My parents welcomed me with open arms and no questions. My mom said, "Stay as long as you need," and my dad hugged me tighter than he had in years. I felt small. But for the first time, I didn't feel wrong for needing help. That first week, I slept like I hadn't in years. No emails. No deadlines. No pressure to prove my worth to someone who never intended to acknowledge it. I shut off my phone for 2 full days. When I turned it back on, there were voicemails from Madison, from Jacob's assistant, and even from a number I didn't recognize, probably a contractor needing guidance. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I opened a blank document on my laptop and titled it, What I Built. I started listing every property I worked on, every renovation, every design, every unpaid hour, every material I sourced, every vendor I built relationships with, page after page. At first, it hurt, like picking at a scab that still bled. But then something unexpected happened. I felt pride. I hadn't just helped. I had created. And they could erase my name from deeds, from websites, from tax filings, but they couldn't erase the work I did. Or the hands that built it. I printed the document, all 67 pages, and placed it in a binder. Not for court. Not for revenge. Just for me. Proof that I existed in the story. Even if they had tried to write me out. I stopped checking in on the properties. I stopped replying to the group chats that still had my name, like I was some ghost haunting their logistics. I canceled the contractor accounts I'd created under my name. I pulled my contacts from the shared vendor sheets. I deleted the shared Dropbox folders. No explanations. Just disconnection. Every click felt like a brick being lifted off my chest. One afternoon, a florist I used to work with, Danielle, called. Hey, she said gently. I heard you, and Jacob split. Yeah, I replied, not offering more. There was a pause. Just so, he called asking for the spring arrangements we planned. I told him they'd have to find someone else. I only work with you. I smiled. Thank you. She hesitated, then added. He didn't even remember the name of the venue. You did everything. It shouldn't have surprised me, but it still did. Back in Eugene, I found an old portfolio of sketches from college. Residential blueprints, whimsical community centers, designs I had created before I got lost in his empire. I stayed up until 3 a.m. one night reworking an old sketch, a small cabin nestled into a wooded clearing. I named the file, Untitled, but mine. I hadn't created for myself in so long. It felt like breathing again. Weeks passed, then months. My silence became the loudest thing I had ever said. Jacob didn't know what to do with it. He tried texting short, neutral check-ins like, hope you're doing okay, or let me know if you want to talk. I ignored them, not to punish him, but because I owed him nothing. One Saturday in May, my dad and I went fishing at a nearby lake, something we hadn't done since I was in high school. We didn't talk much, just sat with the rods in the water and the sun on our shoulders. You seem lighter, he said. I am, I replied. You think you'll go back to that life? No, I said simply. It doesn't want me. And now, I don't want it either. He nodded like he understood more than I gave him credit for. Then he handed me a soda from the cooler and changed the subject. I started picking up freelance design work again, not under Morgan and Company, but under my own name, Laura Carter Design. My first client was a retired teacher who wanted to convert her garage into an art studio. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. I worked with local builders, stayed up tweaking lighting angles, brought her fabric samples, and asked how she wanted the space to feel. When the studio was finished, she hugged me and cried. You saw what I wanted, she said. You made it real. No one had said that to me in years. One night, I got an email from an old investor Jacob used to court. Someone I had hosted multiple dinners for, planned menus, designed tables, even picked the wine. Subject: Where have you been? He wrote, I notice Morgan and Company hasn't felt the same since you left. I didn't realize how much of the vision was coming from you. I'd be interested in backing any solo venture if you're ever thinking about starting something new. I sat with the email open, stunned. All those years of being the silent worker behind the scenes, someone had noticed. I didn't reply to Jacob. I didn't gloat. I simply updated my LinkedIn to say, founder and principal designer, Laura Carter Design. And I hit publish. It was the smallest, quietest revolution. But it was mine. I never expected it to come from Hannah. She was Jacob's sister. The one I always thought resented me quietly. The one who once said, "You'll never really be a Morgan, you know." She had her mother's coldness, her father's sharp tongue. We'd never been close. But when I got a text from her that said, "Can we talk? I think you need to see something," I was too curious to ignore it. We met at a cafe on the corner of Lexington. She looked nervous, stirring her coffee over and over without taking a sip. Then she pulled out a manila envelope. "I didn't know he would actually do it," she whispered. "I thought it was just talk." "What do you mean?" She slid the envelope toward me. "Look for yourself." Inside were copies of emails, legal drafts, and even voice memos. I sat there, my stomach dropping as I read Jacob's emails to the real estate attorney, 2 months before our closing date, explicitly requesting that my name be left off the deed. His words were crystal clear. "Make sure the deed is in my name only. Laura doesn't need to be tied into this legally. It'll make things easier when I transition ownership into my trust." And another memo, his voice calm, rehearsed. "I'll tell her it was a mix-up. Maybe say it's for tax purposes. She'll believe it. She always does." My hands trembled. He had planned it. Every word he said at that table. Every lie. Every excuse. It was rehearsed, orchestrated. He knew I'd be heartbroken. He knew I'd feel betrayed. And he didn't care. He counted on me not fighting back. "I found those on Dad's old laptop," Hannah said quietly. "Jacob used it before it crashed. He didn't wipe anything." I stared at her. "Why are you showing me this?" She hesitated. "Because I may not like you, Laura, but you didn't deserve this. And because," she paused then added, "I saw what Mom did to Dad. She tricked him into signing everything over to her. He died in an apartment he didn't even own. And Jacob, he's becoming her. I can't let that happen again." I swallowed the lump in my throat. This was the moment everything shifted. The betrayal wasn't just emotional, it was strategic. Jacob had tried to erase me. But in doing so, he left behind a trail of digital fingerprints, thinking no one would ever look. I looked at Hannah, her hands folded nervously. "Will you send me everything?" I asked. She nodded. "Already did. Check your inbox." And that's when it changed. That's when I stopped feeling powerless and started preparing to fight. I didn't sleep that night. I stared at those documents over and over, Jacob's cold words echoing in my head like poison. But by morning, the pain had turned into purpose. I wasn't going to let him win. Not quietly. Not politely. I was going to hit him where it hurt, his pride, his reputation, and his precious financial security. First, I lawyered up. My cousin Angela connected me with DeAndre Mitchell, a brilliant real estate and civil litigation attorney with a reputation for flipping cases on their heads. I sent him everything, the emails, the voice memos, even the deed with Jacob's solo signature. "Let me guess," DeAndre said after reviewing the documents. "He told you this was just a mix-up?" I nodded. He smirked. "Classic fraud. Let's play chess." The next step? Leverage. And I had just the plan. Jacob was hosting a celebration party at the house, a new beginnings sort of thing. It was supposed to be for close friends and family, but when you know enough people and you've been burned bad enough, it's not hard to sneak in with a little help from a friend who works catering. I didn't come to cause a scene. I came to deliver a blow. When Jacob spotted me across the patio, his smile vanished. "What are you doing here?" he hissed, pulling me aside. I handed him an envelope. "This is me serving you. Civil suit. Fraud. Breach of verbal contract." "Oh, and DeAndre Mitchell's on it." His face paled. "You're kidding." "Nope. And Hannah gave me everything, including your voice memos." His mouth twitched. For once, he had no snarky comeback. No manipulation. Just fear. I leaned in. "You tried to erase me, Jacob. Now it's all over the deed." The party went on, but Jacob was a ghost. I could see him pacing the upper floor through the window, probably calling every attorney in the county. But that wasn't all. DeAndre was a genius. He filed an injunction stopping Jacob from selling, leasing, or altering the property until the lawsuit was settled. which meant his big plans of flipping it for profit.
Done.
His renovation timeline? Frozen. And the trust he planned to move it into? Legally blocked. And the cherry on top? We issued a press release about the case, subtly hinting at Jacob's shady legal behavior without naming him outright. But in our circle, everyone knew. His reputation tanked. Clients pulled back. Investors paused. And his own family began to whisper. But for me, that was just the beginning. Because 3 weeks later, DeAndre dropped a legal bomb. Not only would we likely get my name restored to the deed, but Jacob's actions opened him up to damages, meaning I could legally demand a financial penalty that would cost him more than the house was worth. The man who tried to erase me?
He was about to pay.
And not just in court, but in every conversation, every event, every business deal where people looked at him and thought, is this guy trustworthy? Or did he lie to the woman who built his empire with him? The irony? I didn't even want the house anymore. I just wanted my name back. And I got it. It's funny how something so material, a deed, a house, a signature, can become symbolic of your worth in someone else's eyes. Jacob thought erasing my name meant erasing my presence, my contribution, my legacy. But the truth? I was never just ink on paper. I was the reason that house even existed in the first place. After the lawsuit settled, my name was legally restored to the deed. The court acknowledged our verbal agreement and the financial proof of my contributions. Every cent I put into renovations, every deal I brokered, every signature he conveniently forgot to include. But more than that, I won the damages case. Jacob had to cut me a check with more zeros than he'd ever offered me voluntarily. And the house? I sold my share to an outside buyer. He begged me not to, said it would ruin everything. I smiled and said, that's the point. With the proceeds, I bought a property of my own, a modern brownstone with big windows and no ghosts. And for the first time in years, I walked through a door that was mine legally, emotionally, spiritually. I even got a fresh start professionally. The scandal surrounding Jacob created ripples that benefited more than just me. Other women who had been silenced or pushed out of deals came forward. And soon, my inbox was full of messages from investors, developers, even young women looking for mentorship. So I started something new, a real estate agency with a mission to empower and protect women entering the field. And I called it Erase No More. I wear that name proudly because I know what it's like to be written out of your own story. And I know how powerful it is to take the pen back. As for Jacob, last I heard, he's downsizing. Blamed the market, of course. But I know better. Because karma doesn't always knock loudly. Sometimes, it just leaves your name off the paperwork.